Countless hours, days, weeks, months, and now into years. I've spent so much time dedicated to this niche in an already niche sport. And to what end?
That's for everyone to decide for themselves. But there's no denying the improvements it will make to your fitness, roll, balance, and overall awareness. Physics affect us all, and there are some fundamentals we have to master in order to move on to the realm of vertical and air. These positions of power are affected by our translation of power, our balance in any position, and finally our core rotation. We will progress through this video from simple to complex, as each skill is a prerequisite for the next.
Positions of power simply mean the best position our body can translate power from body into the paddle, into the water, then back into the paddle and into our body, and into the boat. With every force and direction, there is an equal and opposite, and it is this that we count on to create flight. Let's first break down the body into two main areas of focus. The lower half of the body, which make contact with the boat through your outfitting, and the upper half, which make contact with the water through the paddle. By and large, your lower half won't have too much movement as it will be limited by the outfitting, but the upper half can move through an extreme range of motion. What connects the dynamics between the two areas are the lower trunk muscles. Almost all of our tricks are some variation of a spin, roll, or flip, which if done correctly will put this middle section of your body under a great deal of torsion, flexion, and extension. This in turn has a direct effect on the rest of your body, but especially the lower half of the body while we are sitting in a kayak. This is great news as we need that power to translate into the boat.
That's all fine and well, but where does this power come from? It doesn't just materialize out of thin air. We have to have something to brace off the water to make all that torque in the body translate into the boat. Enter the paddle, your tool of leverage.
Leverage we create with the paddle can be incredible, and the power that transfers from the body into the boat depends on upper body maintenance. By that I mean using the strength of our bone structure as well as our larger muscles, which will last a lot longer and resist damage better than the smaller muscles. You've heard it before, probably when you were taking your first lesson. Maintain the paddler's box. This is a great rule of thumb, but even this statement is not perfect, as we have to move through such a great range of motion to accomplish freestyle moves. An even better statement is maintain your shoulder line by keeping it square to the paddle when executing rotational moves. When the paddle is square with the shoulder line, the leverage created by the paddle has a much shorter path to travel to the core, the heart of power between the boat and upper body. We balance the boat with our obliques and abs, hip flexors, IT band, and flexibility in the spine. When the boat is rolled up on edge, it is best if our torso stays in line with the short axis of the kayak, which will best use these muscles. When the body is flexed forward or extended backward, the muscle groups doing the work to roll the boat up on edge are now multitasking and working on balance of our pitch as well. Although we want to gain this stability in due time, it distracts from the simple act of trying to roll the boat on edge. Start simple, work to complex. There are varying degrees of the boat being rolled up on the edge, and each one can be thought of in terms of how the lower half is active. The boat starts flat, and by simply putting weight on one of our butt cheeks, the boat rolls onto edge. This amount of edge is most common for easygoing carving turns, or even side surfing in mild waves and holes. The second degree is where we engage the knee opposite of the edge engaged. You begin to feel the core as well as your hips getting much more involved in your balance. This edge is most common with more aggressive carving turns, low angle pivots, and aggressive side surfing and carving and dynamic features. The third degree and hardest edge to hold is what I call our cartwheeling edge. This will be very difficult to hold for long periods of time without use of your paddle. This is at the upper end of your balance, and when we begin working into freestyle tricks, this is the amount of balance we should be able to achieve relatively easy. Our balance from bow to stern is our control over the pitch. When our body is neutral on the long axis at the center point, contact throughout the boat is very easy to manipulate, so subtle adjustments are easiest from here. Are you hearing a theme about the center point yet? However, if you need drastic changes in pitch, an aggressive lean forward can pull on your knees and your thigh hooks. and an aggressive lean backward will push your feet away from you. This will have varying effects whether you are surfing, trying to pull your boat vertical, or balancing the boat from end to end, such as bow and stern stalls.
In review, rolling the kayak on edge or controlling the pitch is best achieved when our body is near the center point on the long and short axis. However, there will be freestyle tricks that will make us move out of this position and force us to balance forward, backward, side to side, and every position in between. Your ultimate goal is to be a master of balance while the boat is on edge in every possible body position. We have talked about the best method of getting the power into your body from the leverage of the paddle, what is needed to balance through various positions, but now the focus comes down to what actually creates the torsion, flexion, and extension. The heart of all this power is in your core. You hear this a lot, and now you have felt this power in a few of the previous exercises. But now we will combine all of the previous exercises into perfect execution for the base of all freestyle tricks. That is the bow and stern pivot, the loop, and the roll.
The bow and stern pivot are best known as a cartwheel or a stern squirt and work the principles of both core rotation and balance while on edge. Although both of these moves can be accomplished on waves, holes, and eddy lines, you know you are accomplishing proper technique best when practicing on flat water, as the current is not helping and therefore masking inefficiencies. The core rotation will be the base for getting the kayak to spin, and the balance on edge will set your foundation to getting the boat under the water while spinning the boat. Notice that when the boat begins to spin, the edge on the outside of the spin is slightly dropped. The verticality is achieved not by leaning forward or back, but through edging and spin created through core rotation. The common mistake here is as the boat starts to spin, we lean straight back hard on the full stern instead of allowing the edge to scoop under the water. Leaning straight back will cause us to lose rotational force in our core and also cause the boat to stop spinning. So an ideal stern or bow pivot will cause a full 180 degree to 360 degree boat rotation and be somewhere between 30 and 60 degrees. And as your balance and strength become greater, so does your ability to go more vertical through increased edge. A much more aggressive means of getting the boat vertical while on edge is known as the double pump. With the pivot, we only worked in one direction of core and paddle rotation, where with the double pump, we lift the bow up first to help slam it down to get the boat vertical. This requires the steepest amount of edge and the most amount of balance while twisting our torso to achieve. The common mistake folks make with the double pump is throwing their bodies back and forth along the long axis, as opposed to twisting their torsos at the midpoint. Although there is a subtle shift of weight, we again are hoping to stay at the midpoint of both the long and short axis. This neutral body position also keeps us from pitch pulling the boat forward over our heads as well as pulling it through too flat. One trick I felt that always worked with the bow stall was once I was sweeping forward to slam the bow down, the more important it was to try to get both blades in the water as quickly as possible to start to achieve balance if going for the stall. Once vertical, the paddle controls the yaw or the spin of the kayak, and your body position along the long axis affects the pitch. It is impossible to translate all the little shifts you will make throughout the body in boat contact in order to stay balanced. This will take a lot of patience and practice. To continue into cartwheels, the body and paddle must twist and plant ahead of the boat to keep the rotation going. Cartwheels, squirts, pivots, pirouettes are all based off this principle. All of these simple tricks will translate into our more advanced tricks, such as McNasty's, phonics monkeys, in lunar orbits, and so on. Take the time to master this skill. If you don't, expect to reach a plateau pretty quick. The loop is probably the easiest trick to learn if you skip flat water and find a nice deep and relatively uniform hole. The loop deals with only one axis of motion, where pivots and cartwheels are dealing with multiple. Although if you want a flat water loop, mastery of the double pump and bow stall will be imperative. Remembering that our forward and backward lean have an effect on the pitch of the boat, we want to get the kayak to just under vertical so we can maximize our upward pop for a loop. Getting the boat to bounce up and down while staying balanced will be a combination of pulling the paddle and leaning back, pushing the paddle and leaning forward. The goal is to pull the boat as deep into the water as possible so as to get rejected as far out of the water as possible. At the deepest point, and standing straight up, we allow the boat to get rejected from the water. At the peak of the rejection, we tuck forward aggressively on the front of the boat until the boat begins to come over top of us. Now is the most critical step. Even before the boat comes completely over top of us, we untuck aggressively from the lower half of our bodies, which will cause the stern of the boat to come around. The power for this fundamental trick will all hinge around the hips and lower abs. In order to complete the trick over the top and smoothly, laying out backwards and allowing the volume of the stern to help pull your torso back up is imperative. If you bring your torso up too quickly, it will pull aggressively on your knees and the thigh hooks and cause you to pogo on the stern. This will become important to retentiveness and features in the future, so it is best practiced now. The final trick that is fundamental to play is your roll, and knowing every variation of a roll will help enhance your orientation and execution of tricks. Heck, just rolling up in a hole and still surfing can feel like a major accomplishment the first time it happens. The roll itself extends a bit outside of the scope of this particular episode, but knowing how and when to roll will make an incredible difference to your play. We will expand on rolling and how it applies in play in the near future.
So there it is, our fundamentals for freestyle tricks. Combine this knowledge with the proper warm-up every time you get on the water, and the tricks will start to come easier and will eventually flow intuitively. It won't happen, however, without putting in some good time and some hard work.